There's this fellow just walking across the road here, phone out, in his hand, easy snatch.
Yeah, on the road with the West End taxi driver who's witnessed multiple phone snatches and is warning people to be more vigilant. And yesterday we brought you a special investigation looking at the enormous problem of phone thefts in London. In fact, we've become known as the phone snatching capital of Europe and arguably the world. Well, it may just be a phone, but it makes people feel unsafe, and that matters. A taxi driver in the West End has seen multiple phone snatches and wants people to be more aware. Paul Brennan is the chairman of the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association.
Lady here on the right, phone out, crossing the road here. 1, 2, 3 people with their phones out. I've just driven down Oxford Street, and if I stopped counting at 20, to be completely honest with you, I thought, yeah, what, I'm going to have a little exercise. How many phones can I see? Now, there we go. Look, there's this fellow just walking across the road here, phone out, in his hand, easy snatch. No one thinks that anything's going to happen to them until it happens to them, and that's the problem. The chances of it happening are skyrocketing. Gentleman here on the left also, just walking along, looking in the shops with his phone out. And the lady is always on an electric bike because they can get away so quickly. You know, they're usually all dressed in black with balaclavas on, hoods on. And it's just so easy for them, you know, it's rich pickings out there. Where I've seen problems is when they mount the pavement and they've knocked over pedestrians, sent them flying. And you know, there's been a few injuries that way, broken legs, etc. So that's where the danger really comes in there. Lady over there on the right hand side, at the crossing, looking around, but not at her phone. Phone hanging out. A lot of cab drivers, me included, and our members, they have regular clients who will come in from all across the globe, come to visit London a couple of times a year. They're just not coming anymore. They're now calling up, cancelling. No, we're not going to come to London. I'm afraid it's not safe.
OK, Jessica, you've been investigating phone thefts in London for some time now. London gaining a reputation for being an international centre for phone thefts. Is that fair?
Well, let's first remind ourselves of the scale of the problem in the capital. A phone is now stolen every 7.5 minutes. That's over 180 phones stolen every single day. So I think it is fair to say that actually London has a reputation when it comes to phone theft. It's all on the increase because organised crime groups have pivoted to dealing in stolen phones, simply because it is so lucrative for them. They can make up to £400 per stolen device. What's also massive is the response that we've had to this investigation. Hundreds of people have reached out to us with testimonies of their own experiences, but also some really helpful practical advice on what to do. One person said, have your phone strapped around your neck. I did, and my phone was saved from a snatcher. The other thing that we're hearing a lot of is the same kind of sentiment that we heard in that report there. Mark wrote in, for instance, and said, don't use phones on the street. It is unnecessary. It is a waste of precious police resources when owners do not take basic care of their phones. OK, but let's face it, Jess, most people will report the phone snatch to the police because they have to claim on insurance or just to tell the phone provider. But will the police, once they've had the report, actually investigate it at all? Well, the police say they are taking this incredibly seriously, and actually the City of London police have a really interesting tactic when it comes to making people aware of this issue. They've started to spray blue plaques on the pavements across the square mile in the centre of London. I think you can see pictures on the screen now. These say either a snatch happened here or a snatcher was arrested. And it's a pretty innovative way of really trying to get the message across to people that snatching is happening every single day. We discussed yesterday the Met's approach to tackling this. They are going after the organised crime groups. They're investing in their own fleet of like-for-like electric bikes. And I also spoke to the Met's lead on phone theft, Commander Andy Featherstone, to ask him what his thoughts were in relation to the tech companies and the responsibility that they should be taking.
When we seize the 2,000 phones that we've seized, it's very difficult to identify the victims because we can't identify from the phone who it belongs to without an IMEI number. And we're just asking for a simple change to, for manufacturers to that when you switch the phone on, it's clearly identified from the screen, the unique reference number. We know that the technology, or we believe the technology exists to be able to stun the phone, essentially that it can't be used again. But at the moment, Once the phone goes out of the UK, we're seeing that they're being recycled. They're still using iCloud services or cloud services, and they're still operational outside of the UK. And it's that change that we're looking for to essentially de-incentivise criminals from stealing these phones.
Well, Kate Bevan is a journalist who specialises in technology. Thank you for joining us this evening. Kate, the officers are there suggesting like a stun switch or a kill switch which operators can activate when a phone is reported stolen. Is that something they can do?
Well, I looked into this a bit earlier, actually, because I thought you could, but actually the tech companies have done quite a lot anyway to protect your phone. I mean, one thing is my phone's an Android, and I've got it set so that if it's snatched out of my hand, it'll lock the screen. So that's one good thing. iPhones, you can set up theft detection as well, and it requires a much longer delay before anybody gets into it. But also, looking at why there isn't a kill switch, apparently one reason is because that would have to be network-wide, and that's a vulnerability, and people worry that they could hack that and cause all sorts of havoc.
But could the phone companies be doing more?
I think they're doing quite a lot as it is. As I say, you know, there are lots. I think it depends on how you feel about this. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do to protect your phone that are implemented by the phone companies. You know, for example, you can lock apps on your phone. I always recommend doing that. You couldn't do that until quite recently, for example. So, you know, there are lots of things you can do with your phone to protect it, and those are implemented by the tech companies.
Is it something you do personally? I mean, when you're out and about, I know we see a lot of people with their phones out in front of them, and it's made easy for phone snatchers, but they have the right to do that. What do you do to
Sure, I don't get my phone out if I can possibly
Not at
avoid
all?
it. I mean, I've got a smartwatch, so I can see, you know, notifications on that. I can do maps on this at a pinch. So, you know, that sort of feels to me that I don't want to get my phone out if I'm down at Oxford Circus, for example. But also, I've got my phone set up to protect my data on it. So if my phone is stolen, God forbid, you know, I've got apps locked so you can't access my email. There's a private space on Android phones. You can move apps to that require an unlock. Another thing you can do, actually, is set your notifications so that you can't read a notification unless the phone's unlocked. So if you get a code from your bank to approve a transaction, for example, you know, I've got it set so you can't see that.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you about something we heard in the office, and I'm hoping you're going to knock this straight on the head and say that's rubbish, Assad, no truth in it at all. That phone companies are perhaps not doing as much as they can do to keep phones safe, because if a phone is stolen, the person claims on insurance, whatever, they order another phone.
Do you know what?
Now, that's just a rule. There's no basis in that. Tell me that's wrong.
I don't know. I heard that as well, because I was talking about this
really?
earlier.
You've heard it as well?
Well, you know, phone companies exist to sell us phones, don't they? I mean, I honestly don't know if that's true, but I think also it's more difficult to instigate a kill switch than people think it is.
OK, Kate Bevan, thank you very much. That's absolutely fascinating, and thanks for the tips you've given as well. Many thanks. Now, if you want to see the full BBC London documentary on phone thefts, and it really is worth watching, it's by our reporter Jessica Ewer, who we heard from just a few minutes ago. You can see it, including fascinating footage of phone thefts taking place. It's on the BBC iPlayer right now. All you have to do is search for what you see on your screen there. It's Fighting the Phone Snatchers. Do take a look if you can.